Well, the Hawaiian swing is over after Patton Kizzire registered his second win of the 2018 season, and now it's off to the mainlands and more West Coast golf, with Tiger making his debut at Torrey Pines next week. But this week, we're going to preview the CareerBuilder Challenge from La Quinta, California, with the latest stats, odds, and picks, including an update on what else is going on around the world, including in Europe, as Prime Sports Golf, brought to you by Pro Golf Weekly on Prime Sports Network, starts now. All right, it's Wednesday, January 17th, 2018. I'm Greg DePalma. Thanks for joining us again for another great season of golf coverage, along with our partners at ProGolfWeekly.com. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN. You can receive our latest opinions and on-demand programming alerts. And, of course, you'll also get our Twitter followers from my upcoming analysts who are with me every week to break down what's going on in the world of golf. First, joining me, he's a PGAtour.com contributor. You can find his first look reports every Friday prior to every event on the PGA Tour, Jeff Shane. And Jeff, I do have to thank you for clarifying the camera coverage in your recent article on this from this past Sunday, because I was going to bring it up on the show. I'm watching the golf. Of course, I with all the football going on, I was tuning in and fast forwarding and trying to watch it. I was actually watching it on Monday, not knowing the coverage from Sundays, but still, I'm getting towards the end of the event where I'm starting to find the coverage on 18 a little bit weird. I'm like, okay, one over the head shot or angle shot from above is okay. I guess that's fine. We see the ball, we follow it, but I don't know where the ball is. And then all of a sudden, it just keeps happening, and I'm going, and then I'm hearing this weird sound issues where it sounds like the sound is not being picked up. I'm going, what is going on here? But I guess it's all been clarified, or I guess you knew what was going on, but I didn't.
You know that it's going to be a strange day when your email suddenly finds this statement from the PGA Tour about, quote unquote, an interruption in the broadcast. And of course, this came one day after the erroneous missile alert in Hawaii. So, interruption in broadcast sounded particularly weird in that light. So you click on it, and that they tried to get out ahead of the game, ahead of the broadcast, and say things are going to look a little different because our dispute with the technicians, the camera operators, the sound people has gone into such a situation they walked off the job. And so, first of all, my question was going to be, are they going to be able to show it at all? Because it's a lot of personnel to cover a golf tournament, especially if you are doing in many cases 18-hole coverage. That's a lot of cameras and a lot of wiring and all of that. But they cobbled enough together to put a broadcast together, even though they had some very different elements to it.
Yeah, again, it wasn't like I was watching like 2 hours continuous coverage, so I didn't really pick all the bad angle stuff until I was really slowing things down at the end, and then, like I said, especially on 18, which I think, what did they play on 18? Like 3 out of the last 5 holes or something like that, with the 2 in sudden death. How many were in sudden death? 3 or 2 did they have on 18?
It was 6 sudden death holes. 4 of them were 18, and 2 of them were 17.
Okay. Yeah, and the 18, of course, that one was where it really was hard. I couldn't pick up the ball a lot. So I didn't understand what was going on there, but it's been now clarified. And you have that in your Around the Tours report. And anybody that might have been thinking the same thing, well, now you know. Okay, so let's also welcome in from ProGolfWeekly.com, lead writer for that website, which is a digital magazine covering pro golf around the globe, is Joel Cook. And Joel, we spend most of the show on the PGA Tour, but you wrote about another pro event going on, which is actually an even bigger event this week, being held at Abu Dhabi under European Tour storylines. So you can check that out at ProGolfWeekly.com. And if part of the storyline is Rory McIlroy returning in that event, what do you think we should expect from Rory coming into this new calendar year? Because Rory has actually not been playing that well. Won top 20 in his last 6.
Well, it's hard to tell exactly what to expect him. He's saying all the right things. He sounds like basically every NFL player in June. He's in the best shape of his life. He's refocused and all this. He's supposed to be healthy. He says the word injury's healed. So we've heard that before. So hopefully nothing gets that going again, because that was very, very stubborn to heal up last time. He made news last week mentioning get a diagnosed with a heart condition, which that always sounds awful when you hear it. But he wanted to make sure all the fans knew it's really not a big deal in his mind. It's not something that's going to hurt his career going forward. It's just something that needs to be monitored every so often. But I mean, this is a tournament where he's finished runner-up 4 times already, and he's going to have a lot to shake off, a lot of rust to shake off, especially in a field where you have Dustin Johnson there, you have Justin Rose, Tommy Fleetwood coming back, or is the defending champion. I mean, Rory sounds like he says he's going to be going to tournaments earlier this year to be able to get more preparation time. He feels that will help him throughout. He's making a lot of changes. He's really committed to his diet. He says that he thinks waiters are hating him now because he's always that customer who has all these weird requests, like not cooking in oil and butter and all that.
Well, that's okay, as long as he gives him a good tip.
Yeah, I'm sure he does.
Well, you never can be sure, but as long as those tips come out, it might even be a good idea to give the tip first.
Yeah, that is a good idea in a situation like that. But yeah, he struggled. He hasn't won since the Tour Championship in 2016, and it just looks so strange looking at the world golf rankings right now. He's not in the top 10.
Yeah.
He's down at number 11 right now.
Sure.
I kept thinking I was overlooking him. This is the first time he's been out of the top 10 since December of 2010. So this will be his first action since finishing T63, the Alfred Dunhill Links, in early October. Not sure how quick it's all going to shake off, but he sounds like he's optimistic, and they always do.
Yeah, that's why it's kind of hard to figure out. We won't be able to until they play. I will say this, though, Jeff, like we talked about this before. We understand the name recognition and all that, and that's fine. I mean, look, if people want to wager on Rory McIlroy this week or put him into their fantasy, like if you have to choose between like 3 or 4 of the top guys and you want to go with Rory, that's by all means, go ahead and do it. But just like we kind of talked about the last time we were in this situation with Rory, and I forget which event it was. Look, I need to see him prove it first, because he just isn't playing that well, coming off just a very, very difficult year for him for a whole lot of reasons that we've talked about many times. And then here comes his heart situation as well, even though he does say it's okay. But it's not like it's Rory. It's not like he is in Jon Rahm's situation. I mean, he's got to go up against Dustin Johnson, Justin Rose, who, by the way, is playing 10 times better than Rory McIlroy is right now. You got Stenson, you got Casey, you got Grace, you got Fleetwood, you got Hatton, you got Fitzpatrick. I mean, all these guys are playing really well. They're on top of their game. And I think it's going to take an awful lot for Rory McIlroy to win the event this week.
Yeah, I think it will. I guess if you are a Rory McIlroy fan, or if you're going to take a flyer on him, in fantasy or at the betting shop, you're going to lean very hard on the fact that he's got 7 top 10s in 8 appearances in Abu Dhabi. If you're going to come back off a 3-month layoff because of injury, and you're healthy, what better place to knock the rust off than a place that you're really familiar with and you traditionally play really, really well. And I suppose that's part of, besides the name recognition, that's the other part of the equation that would make him, number 2 choice. You're right. We don't know how he is, because he hasn't hit a competitive shot in 3 months, while Rose has won 3 times, and Stenson's played well, and Casey has played well, and Fleetwood won the race to Dubai, and Dustin Johnson blitzed the field at Kapalua. But Abu Dhabi has kind of been Rory's lair. So there's your equation.
Well, who do you like, Joel? Who do you give me a couple of names that you like? I mean, I think Rose is a really good play this week, because I think he should be right up there with Dustin Johnson, to tell you the truth. Johnson's 5-1. Rory and Rose are 8-1. and there's a big drop off to Stenson and Casey at 18-1. I think Rose should be right there neck and neck with Dustin as the co-favorite. So that's why I like Rose, because I'm getting almost double the money from Dustin, and he's got 10 straight top 10s with 3 wins.
I agree, and Dustin Johnson was real good this last year too. I can't figure out why Rory McIlroy would be at 8-1. It feels like he should be like triple that, regardless of how great he's played at this course lately. And I just can't see anyone touching him at that. Yeah, I think I agree with you. Rose and Dustin Johnson should be, co-favorites, or maybe a situation where like DJ's 5-1 and Rose is 6-1. Rose has just been playing so phenomenally lately. Yeah, he's got, like Jeff mentioned, he's got 3 wins pretty recently, and Henrik Stenson's come back around a lot too. 18-1 odds, I like him, better than Rory too. And Tyrrell Hatton is he was clearly picking it up late in the year. He was a little consistent at the Eurasia Cup, but he's someone I would still take over Rory too.
Yeah, Hatton 8 straight top 20s, including 5 top 10s and a couple of wins, Jeff. And boy, Paul Casey, we're looking at the watch with Paul Casey. In his last 35 events, 26 of them have been top 25s, 14 of them top 10s, 9 of them top 5s, and 2 runner-ups. I mean, this has got to be one of the best stretches of his entire career, and yet it doesn't have a win yet.
Well, and sometimes that's the way it's been with Paul Casey. This is not a PGA Tour event, but he's only won once on the PGA Tour, even though he has played pretty much a full PGA Tour schedule since turning professional more than a decade ago. He has picked up a few more wins on the European Tour, but it seems like this guy does everything well, except somewhere along the way he lost the touch on winning a tournament. And it could be one of those situations where once he finds that touch and he wins one, he might do like Justin Rose has done here and take a bunch in short order. I also think that Paul Casey might have been rejuvenated a little bit, just in terms of spirit and competitiveness from last week's Eurasia Cup.
Okay.
He competed for Europe, and that was his first time to compete in a team competition in like 3 or 4 years, between injury and then he wanted to ease back into things. So he did not make himself eligible for the last Ryder Cup because he wanted to focus on kind of the big picture part of his career. But he's all in for the Ryder Cup in France. And I think because of that, Thomas Bjorn wanted to put him in a team event before that. And they had a strong comeback on Sunday in singles. Paul Casey was part of that. I think there may be a little bit of a bounce to his step this week.
All right. Well, look, we know Paul Casey likes playing in those type of events, big in match play. So maybe we'll see. We'll see whether or not it carries over or not. But I agree with you. He gets that first win off his shoulders, and I think that he's going to be awfully dangerous. And as we said when Justin got his first win in this stretch, watch out because Justin has really not put together he hasn't really put together a Player of the Year. And he's in the prime of his career to do that. And why can't Justin Rose end the season as Player of the Year? He's more than capable of doing it. But it's a long way to go when he already has 3 wins. So we'll see how things go there. Grace, who did not play well last season, is off to a pretty good start. He was the favorite last week, but still finished runner-up. He won a few weeks ago, so he's back to playing good golf. Tommy Fleetwood is playing better golf again. He had a stretch of things weren't going too well, but that's to be expected. And then Fitzpatrick, 33-1, 9 straight top 20s, including 3 top 10s and a win. Keep an eye on him. Keep an eye on Cabrera Bello, who has been playing well lately. He was runner-up in Hong Kong in his last time we saw him in late November. And Kiradech Abibanrat has 4 straight top 10s, including a win and a runner-up. So he's 45-1, another player to keep an eye on at Abu Dhabi. So that's a big one. Definitely the best of the 2 this week. So you got a little bit of actually, if you're a general sports fan, you've got wall-to-wall worldwide coverage between watching tennis in Australia, golf at Abu Dhabi, and then of course you've got the NFL and the event that we're going to preview right now, the CareerBuilder Challenge, the old Bob Hope, the old Humana Challenge, the old Bill Clinton Foundation Challenge. I'm sure they're kind of glad it's no longer called that now after what's been going on there. But anyway, this one's at La Quinta, California, and what do they play here, Joel? 3 different golf courses?
Yes, they play the stadium course. There's La Quinta and the Nicholas course at PGA West. They alternate between those for the first 3 days, and then the top 70 who made the cut will go back on Sunday for the stadium course again, which was out of the rotation for a while because the tour thought it was too hard. Although it's been playing easier since they came back.
Too hard.
Back to it. Yeah, back in I believe it was '87.
Okay.
A lot of players thought the course was too difficult to be on, a regular on course, and they took it out of the rotation for 20 years.
Okay. And is that now? This is a pro-am?
Yes. Yeah, it's a pro-am.
Is that part of the reason? Is that why they didn't want it too hard for the amateurs as well? Was that an issue?
I'm not sure. That was I was back in the '80s, and my mind's blanking a little bit on the specifics of that. So I just know that there was a lot of talk from.
Were you alive in the '80s?
Yeah, for 8 years of it.
Okay, just making sure. Jeff, we always talk about these pro-ams. You got to have patience, and so that's going to come into play when you're thinking about picking a player this week.
It definitely is, and it's part of the reason why some of the big names just don't play this event or play Pebble Beach. It takes 5.5 hours to complete a round, and to this tournament's credit, they used to be 5 days, 1 pro with 3 amateurs across 4 courses, and I suppose that was great when Bob Hope was Master of Ceremonies and Sammy Davis Jr. and Jack Lemmon and those guys. Goosed the Q factor there. But as times have evolved, there were fewer celebrities. Playing with 3 amateurs can be very difficult on the patients, especially if you're playing a tough golf course. And by the way, PGA West may be the only course where players actually circulated a petition to get it out of the rotation.
That hard.
So,
okay. Interesting.
Pete Dye was commissioned to build the toughest golf course he could, and he was quite successful at it.
Apparently so. Okay. And what was it? Is it only because of the fact that it was because there's nothing wrong with having hard golf courses, but was it because it wasn't designed to be that hard, like this particular event, or was it really that hard? Because how come? I mean, we haven't seen any other like major events there, have we?
Well, the skins game was there for a few years. PGA Tour qualifying finals were there about a half dozen times. So they put it to a fair amount of use. The interesting thing is it's also part of La Quinta Resort, and it's considered a resort golf course, and
sure.
There's a line there that has to be drawn between too tough or making it tough and not chasing away your resort customers, and yet that survived. And let's face it, there are some golfers, some high-end golfers that like that kind of challenge, and if they shoot 108 on the toughest golf course in the West, that doesn't bother them. So, but the players just really hated it. They said it was incredibly difficult. I remember a line from the late Jim Murray of the Los Angeles Times the first year that it was held there. He said, you need a camel, a canoe, a Sherpa, and a tourniquet to get through the place.
All right. Sounds definitely sounds adventurous, but those days are over. What about interesting stats? I know, I of course, just quickly, you can tell that 7 of the last 11 of these have been decided by just 1 stroke, and that includes 4 playoffs. So there's a lot of drama we get at this event. Anything else that we should know about while we're trying to formulate a plan here of picks?
Take hot putters and take guys that can go low. This is a shootout course. And part of that is because of the Pro-Am format. They're not going to toughen it up, perhaps except on Sunday at the stadium course, because they've got to get the amateurs through. And so you are going to have scores that are in the 20 below range. And it used to be really, really low before they brought PGA West Stadium back into the rotation, when it was the Nicklaus course and the Palmer private course and La Quinta. And by the way, there was a 59 at La Quinta Country Club last year by Adam Hadwin. You had to approach 30 under par. Now it's not quite so low. And I think the change in the course rota had a lot to do with that. But you still have to be prepared to make a lot of birdies, or you're moving backwards.
All right, so let's get started with our picks. So we'll take a look at the latest odds and past performance results and so forth. So Jon Rahm is the clear favorite here at 8-1, and then you have Brian Harman next at 14-1, and then after that we've got 3 Kisner, Reed, and Simpson at 18-1, and then Phil Mickelson at 22-1, making his debut for 2018, the year 2018. So, and matter of fact, how is this the first time Phil has played since what? WGC, right? He last played that event in October, the one over.
That's correct.
Okay. All right.
He played 2 fall events, and that was always the plan, that he would play the 2 fall events, and then this is his traditional coming out for the new year venue.
And he's got a new driver, right? New Callaway driver that supposedly is going to help him out with. He needs some help off the tee. We all know that, and he knows he needs help off the tee. And that's the thing, is he's actually played pretty well. 4 straight top 20s, couple top 10s. So just imagine if he can get some sort of halfway decent consistency off the tee. Then he can be very dangerous, and he might, if he just keeps playing the way he's been playing recently, and he gets better, more consistent driving, then he can win some events this season.
He's been very close for the past year, maybe a little over a year. A bad round, a bad 9-hole stretch somewhere has taken him out of it. He was in the hunt at Safeway. In the season opener, he didn't quite contend as well as he thought he might in China, but he still played fairly well, and he had his chances at times during last season too.
All right, now he's not going to be my top pick. I have the first pick, but I won't be taking Phil Mickelson as my top pick. And believe it or not, the player I am going to be picking, which is going to be real easy for me, which may be a surprise, but I am going to go with the easy route here and take Jon Rahm as the favorite at 8-1. But Rahm actually has played here before. So we're actually going to start talking about Jon Rahm's past history at golf courses. 34th last year, so nothing great, but he's got the experience here. It's just that he's on top of his game. Runner-up, we saw him a couple weeks ago, and then the win over on the European Tour. So that's so he's on top of his game. And again, it's not a top-heavy field here, so he's the one star player out of the field. And for me, then, in his form in this field, he is a must-play as the top pick. So he'll be my top pick at 8-1, Joel.
Yeah, well, that's a no-brainer pick this week. He's just been so phenomenal. He was the one that finished second to the DJ at Kapalua, and then he won the DP World Tour Classic on the European Tour recently. His game doesn't seem to have any weaknesses right now, and it wouldn't bother me that he finished T34 last year. He's still, in my mind, easily the best bet in this field.
Yeah, and the good thing, and even though he is a big favorite, 8-1 compared to 14-1 for the second choice, fact is 8-1 is not a bad number for a player of his caliber in a field that has no other superstars. So who are you going with, Joel?
Well, it seems like the smart pick here would be Webb Simpson. Just with his form lately, he's been out of the top 20 just once in his last 7 events, had that 63-65 weekend, and suddenly he can putt. He's up to 20th in strokes gained putting. That's coming back around again after he had struggled after the anchor ban. That being said, I'm going with Patrick Reed here at 20-1. I think he looks really close to me to contending again. He was looking good late in the year, finished T10 at the European Tour event late in the year. He looked good at Tiger's events. He's won this tournament before. And he's still a phenomenal putter. He was seventh on tour in putting. He didn't get a win for the first time in 4 years, but he had some great form late in the year. He was runner-up at the PGA. He had some other good performances. So far this year, he's had some really bad third rounds, but I mean, this is a course where you need to be able to score, and he can go as low as anyone. He had like 82 in the third round in China and 76 in Korea. But aside from that, he's been pretty good. I'm hoping that the time off will get some of that inconsistency back out a little bit.
All
So
right.
I like Reed a lot this week.
All right. So besides the 96 and the 92, he's doing okay. No, actually, we're waiting for Patrick Reed, Jeff, to maybe he can have a big breakout season, because we've really expected this the last couple of seasons. We expected it last season after the Ryder Cup. It didn't happen. But he won this event in 2014. He does seem to maybe be rounding in the form. So he was definitely on the short list, no question about that, in this field. But we just don't know. We're kind of got to guess whether or not he's ready to take off. Is he ready to have a big season? And 18-1 is not a bad number, because we won't get that if he starts getting hot.
Absolutely, and I think maybe it's just a question of how does he roll into or use his finishes at the end of 2017 to roll into 2018. And one of the things that we see a little bit with Patrick Reed is his even numbered years are better than his odd numbered years. He won this event in 2014. He had a very good 2016, capped by being Captain America, at the Ryder Cup. And but 2015 and 2017 were I won't say a step back, but they were not as successful as the even numbered years. Even numbered years, by the way, are Ryder Cup years. That may have something to do with it. I don't know. And some players are just that way. But I think we'll get a good indication, because we have not seen Patrick Reed yet in 2018. This will be his debut. He is coming in off the birth of his second child. That might have a little factor early on, but we know his talent. We know his grittiness. It's a solid pick. I don't know that I would have taken him at the top, but it's a solid pick. And being that Joel left Webb Simpson on the table, I will pick that up and hope that he can carry a little bit of momentum from the weekend at Wildlife.
Yeah, I mean, look, Simpson was – I had a top three. Simpson was in the top three with Rahm. And, as Joel said, he's playing well. 7 top 20s in his last 8, 4 top 10s, 2 top 5s, 4th last week. He's had a couple of good showings here. I think 4 top 25s in all. So we have been kind of waiting for Webb to put his game into motion. And, of course, he had his father pass away not too long ago. But maybe Webb is finally ready. I mean, he's had a lot of personal distractions over the last few years after winning the U.S. Open. And I'm not saying all of them bad. It's just that he's had a lot of personal things going on in his life. And so maybe he's starting to get a little bit more focused in understanding how to juggle the personal life and the game. So it's starting to work out for him. When was the last time he won, Webb? Been a couple of years, hasn't it?
It might have even been that U.S. Open. I'm trying to remember if there was one other in that mix, but I think the
2013, right?
Yeah.
2013 was the U.S.
2012.
Open.
I'm sorry, at Olympic.
Yeah,
so he won at Shriners in 2013 then.
Okay.
So but that's been 4 years and counting. So it's sometimes you look at some of these players like Webb, who, by the way, when he and I think we do kind of forget sometimes that even though he won the U.S. Open in 2012, he was a better player in 2011. I mean, that was his breakout year. He was phenomenal in 2011. 2012, he wasn't really supposed to win the U.S. Open, and not only wasn't he supposed to win, but he wasn't even supposed to win after he sunk the putt on 18. But he got the win. He stole the Open, he won in 2013, as I mentioned, not in a big event. But yeah, it's been a while. It's been really since 2011 since he peaked as the 10th ranked player in the world. So, all right, yeah, Webb, like I said, was in my top 3. Rahm was also in my top 3, but another player was in my top 3 that I'm actually kind of surprised that wasn't chosen. But I figured if Patrick Reed was taken, one of the 3 would be available, and that's Brian Harman. So I'll go ahead and take him at 14-1. Harman is a definite play this week. He is coming off a 3rd place finish here, which is his best result last year. He's got 5 straight top 10s. 4 of those top 5s. He's playing the best golf of his entire career, Joel, and he just has to get over the hump. I mean, we kind of thought he was going to win last week. He was in complete control heading into the weekend, just did not play well over the weekend.
No, that final round, I mean, he had a late bogey there, and there were some holes he didn't take advantage of, but still it's hard to argue with his results lately. I think he's been in the top 8 or 5 events in a row now. He definitely someone else considering his short game is just so on, and he hopefully plays more like he did early in the week than later on. He's a good pick at that point.
Yeah, matter of fact, if you take a look at the guys who finished inside the top 10 last week, it was Hoagie and Harman were the only 2 players that finished outside the 60s. They both had a 70. So that was, a bunch of 65s and 64s. James Hahn had an incredible 62. So the low scoring was there, and that kind of confounds the round even more about, wow, okay. But again, I just think in all, he's just been playing so well that, like I said, you got to take him at some point. So I know one of us would have. And by the way, what did you think about James Hahn's 62, Joel?
Well, it's kind of weird with James Hahn. You never know when he's going to suddenly be feeling it. Like, it doesn't seem to matter if he's coming in poorly or not. When he's feeling it, he just seems to get going. I mean, he got that incredible stretch. I think he had 6-7 birdies in an 8-hole span there. Playoffs, he had some disappointing missed putts in the playoffs. He really should have ended at either the 4th or the 5th one. I think he had a 6-foot putt that would have closed it out, and he didn't really even come close to getting it.
Yep.
But I thought it was interesting the way he was talking after the round. Like, you think he was in the twilight of his career, talking about how, he's 36 now and he, don't know how many more chances he's going to have. And so he was real down on himself for that. That was kind of weird to hear. But
yeah, that's the kind of confidence you want to be displaying. Like you said, he's not over the hill. So, but hey, it's when you're a player like James Hahn, though, like you mentioned, that doesn't always have a lot of consistency, in positive consistency. He's not like a guy who will have a run of 4 straight top 10s or anything even close to that. So when he does win or perform this way and get a chance to win, it usually comes from nowhere. So he wants to be able to take advantage of those. So maybe he just feels, hey, look, I know who I am. I know the type of golfer I am. I'm happy with that. I'm enjoying my career as a professional golfer. I'm not going to try to fool myself into believing I'm something I'm not. So, I got to take advantage of every one of these opportunities I get. And for Pat Kazire, we've talked a lot about him, Jeff, over the last, really before he kind of dried off. We talked about him a couple of years ago as an up-and-coming player. I remember kind of feeling like he reminded me of Davis Love. He's a very talented player, and it wasn't like he played very well either down the stretch. He just, there were a lot of pars from Patton Kazire down the stretch, and a lot of missed opportunities as well. He was very fortunate that James Hahn didn't play well in the sudden death either, but he just hung in there. And that's kind of the player he is, he's noted for. He's usually a very good putter. That kind of let him down. But this has got to be a tremendous confidence boost for him. And I'm not just talking this year. I'm talking his entire career.
Well, and this is kind of what we had expected when he came off the Web.com tour a few years ago, having set the earnings record on the Web.com tour and really, taking that season over there by storm. He did not, make the immediate impact that I thought he would. But what he has done is he's learned how to hang in there. He's learned how to manage his schedule And I thought that, even though he didn't really have a chance to, or didn't create a chance to go low on Sunday, what he was able to do is he had that one Shazam hole where he eagled 10, that actually jumped him all the way into the lead. And then, even though, his putter is not sizzling, he made 6-foot par after 8-foot par after 8-foot par.
Yeah.
and kept himself in the mix. Obviously, twice in the playoff, he had to kind of stand there and close his eyes because James Hahn was putting for the win, and Hahn missed, and Kazire truly just outlasted Hahn over those 6 holes.
And look, we also have to keep in mind that you're talking about a player that in rounds 2 and 3 shot 64. It is very difficult to come out a third round in a row and shoot close to 64. So he shot what he probably should have shot after back-to-back 64s. And those 64s what is really what put him in contention for the win, and he was able to hold on for his second in the last 4 events. By the way, Kazire is 28-1 in the event this week. So Joel, you're next. We've got Rahm, Reed, Simpson, and Harmon off the board. That leaves Kevin Kisner as the lone guy standing in the top 5 at 18-1. And then we go to Phil Mickelson. Duffner, by the way, is 25-1. He won the playoff in 2016. And then Kazire at 28-1. And a couple other players at 28-1, including Brendan Steele, who was runner-up here a few years ago, 6th last year, won in the Safeway event in October, and Zach Johnson, who is playing pretty well, 5 straight top 25s. He's also 28-1. So do you like any of those players?
Yes, I'll go to the one we talked with earlier. I'm going to go with Phil this week. He has been playing well lately. He had that T3 at the Safeway. He did pretty well over in China, tied 15th there. And technically, he's a 2-time winner of this event. But back in 2002, 2004, that this what they do today as a tournament is unrecognizable compared to that. So that probably doesn't matter. But still, there's some confidence there from having won in the area before. Then last year at this tournament, or he played well at this tournament recently too. He was 3rd in 2016. Last year he finished tied 21st, but he opened to 68, 66. And he was looking a little more consistent at the end of the year. I think he's a good bet this week.
Yeah, Phil is. I would agree, especially at 22-1 in this field, the way he's playing. He's got some good memories here, so why not? It's not a bad idea. And yeah, those players that he beat in the playoffs those 2 years, I mean, those were some really tough competitors. So, of course, I have no idea who Dave Berganio is. But Skip Kendall was the other. But that's the kind of event this has always been. So win's a win. He's got 2 of them, but as you said, it was a long time ago. And but he was 3rd a couple years ago. So and 21st last year. So yeah, Phil Mickelson, definitely somebody that you should consider this week in this field, Jeff. So who do you like? What do you think? Was Phil a good play? Were you considering him?
For me, it came down to Phil Mickelson, and obviously the guy who I'm now going to take. The thing with Phil is how is he going to come out the gate?
Mm-hmm.
First event in 2 months. He's made a little equipment tweak. It's still Callaway. I'm sure he's had plenty of time to work on it. Callaway's headquarters is not all that far from his home in Rancho Santa Fe, so he will have had plenty of time to work out the kinks. But some guys just need a week to get going. So he was, like I said, it was between him and Jason Duffner, and I like the way Jason Duffner has really going back in the last season, how his game has started to come back into the form that we all knew and loved Jason Duffner for. Kind of understated. He's got that little Ben Hogan waggle. He hits it fairly straight, really consistently, and he started to putt a lot better. He's got 2 top 20s in his first 2 starts in calendar year 18. He won this event just a couple of years ago. I think that Duffner's a good play this week.
All right, Duffner, the 2016 champ, who you picked when he won in 2016, so you do have some connections there. And, of course, that was the year that I took David Lingmerth, who Duffner beat in the playoff that year. So you beat me that year, and he followed it up with a 25th last year. Keep in mind, Duffner is playing better, but he does not have a top 10 since his win at Memorial. Instead, 6 top 20s. So he's just a really good round away from contending, and this is not a star-studded field. So his familiarity with the golf course, his success here, his rhythm, as you said, is where he wants it. So, and the odds of 25-1 are very solid for Jason Duffner, a former major champ. All right. I'm going to go ahead and drop down to 33-1 and take one of these young players looking for his first PGA Tour win, and that is Bud Cauley. Cauley has played well here the last 2 years. He was third last year, and he's been playing well recently. He's been making a lot of cuts. He was 7th at Safeway, 8th the last time we saw him at RSM. So I'm going to go with Bud Cauley, Joel, as my third pick. What do you think about Bud Cauley?
Yeah, I'm seeing 40-1 for him now. That's really good when you consider how well he played here last year and how much he was coming along at the end of the year. He seems like someone that's going to have a win pretty soon. It wouldn't be shocking if those that. His time definitely, I think, is coming soon.
All right. So you're next. You have Patrick Reed and Phil Mickelson as your top 2 picks. Who's pick number 3?
I'm going to go a little bit down the board and pick someone I think we're going to see a good bounce back from. Russell Knox at 45-1. He 2 years ago, he had that great season, 2 wins, 2 runner-ups. He was kind of disappointing last year, but he seems to have his head back in the right place. He was traveling a lot between the U.S. and the European Tour, a lot that really came down on him pretty hard, and he's rededicated to playing in the U.S. now. And I think we're going to see that come back a little bit. He's had 2 top 10s in his last 3. He was tied for 10th last week at the Sony, but he was 4th in greens and regulation. That short game I think is going to help him a lot.
Yeah, Knox is a player who kind of disappeared for a while, but the fact that he has played well recently with those 2 top 10s is, a matter of fact, something he has not done, believe it or not, since late 2016. So maybe his game is starting to fire up now, and definitely a player that I was considering as well, a little bit maybe as an alternate. But Russell Knox is somebody who hasn't played here for a couple of years, but maybe he's fine-tuning his game and makes sense, especially at 45-1. Jeff, you have a couple of major champs as your top 2 picks, Simpson and Duffner. Who are you going to go with your third pick?
Well, it's not going to be a major champ. I'm going to do a little bit what you guys have done and drop down. I'm actually going to go onto the cusp of the long shot category to take Chris Kirk at 50-1. His last start in 2017 was a 4th place at the RSM Classic, and then he started 2018 with an opening 63 at Sony, finished tied for 10th. And another guy that we're kind of looking for a bounce back from.
Yeah, Kirk was one of my top 2 choices for long shots as well. He had didn't close well last week. Got off to a good start in the final round. Looked like he had a shot. Of course, he got off to a good start last week, period. But look, a couple of top 10s to start to kind of get things going here in 2018. And he has had some decent success here before. Hasn't won since 2015, but we know he's a talented player and is going to break through pretty soon. So if he keeps playing like this, 45-1 is a good number to roll the dice in this field with. So a couple of good players to roll the dice with, Knox and Kirk, right around 45-50-1 as we swing to our long shots. And these are players that are 50-1 or more. And the second player on my list that I was going to grab is a player that I mentioned as that I was thinking about taking last week. I didn't, but he played well again. So I'm gonna grab him now, and that's Brian Stewart at 66-1. And Stewart's got 4 top 25s in his last 5 events. That includes 3 top 10s and 2 top 5s. He was 4th last week. And even though he's missed a cut a couple of times here recently, he does have a couple of top 10s here, including a 5th. So he's played well here before. He's on top of his game. And in this field, not a bad idea at 66 to 1, Brian Stewart, Joel.
Yeah, actually, that was going to be my pick. So I'm a little got to take a quick look here and see who else I like in that range.
What did you like about him?
He's a 35-year-old from Michigan like me, but he's tied for fourth at the Sony last week. He's been playing really well. He's getting a lot of birdies too, and that's important at this course. His putting has been tremendous. I 70 to 1 odds I think are really, really good for him. That was definitely going to be my pick if he had been there.
Okay, so who are you going to go with then?
I'll go with another one right on the board there. Chesson Hadley at 50 to 1. I know he wasn't quite as good in his last time out, but he was really, really getting it going in the fall. He's missed the cut in all three of his attempts at this tournament, but he doesn't look anything. He's not the same golfer now that he was then. Hopefully the time off kind of helped him. I think at 50 to 1 odds, that's pretty good for how well he's played since the new season started.
Yeah, he really has. By the way, his odds have really dropped down. He was this morning. He was at 33 to 1. So he has really dropped, and I'm kind of surprised about that because I was thinking about him as well, even though he didn't play all that great his last time out, Jeff. You've taken him a bunch of times for good reason. I think you might have taken him all 3 times he finished in the top 5.
Yeah, and he's a streaky player, so once you see them finish in the top 5, you ride him for a little bit. Now, of course, we've had the break. I don't think that he has teed it up anywhere since the holidays, and so we'll see if anything carried over. But I was definitely looking at Chesson Hadley in this category as well.
All right. So, Jeff, your official long shot. You've already got one before they've become official. So that's Chris Kirk at 50 to 1. So who's your second?
I'm going to take somebody that just he is a consistent ball striker and has been putting better. Hopefully we can put the two together this week. But I think that Lucas Glover has continued to climb the ladder again from the precipitous drop that he kind of suffered between 2010 or 2011 and 2015. And he's not of the caliber that he was in the late 2000s. But he's gotten a little better and a little better. He's got 5 top 20s in this event. 3 of his last 5 starts of 2017 went for a top 15.
All right. So Lucas Glover at 70 to 1, just like my long shot. Brian Stewart at 70 to 1. And, yeah, Glover does have a whole bunch of top 20s here, so he has had some decent success at this event. All right, my number one alternate, that is in case anybody between Rahm, Harman, and Cauley are not able to tee it up tomorrow. And it's between 2 players. One player I have been taking recently, and as I mentioned, that he has been playing pretty well. That's Zach Johnson at 28 to 1. I'm not gonna take him here though, but again, it was close. He's just barely gonna be left off my board, but again, keep in mind, I think he's a solid play because he's been playing pretty consistently. He just hasn't been able to put it all together, but it's a lot better than where he was before. He's been playing pretty well, so keep that in mind. But I'm going to go with a former champ here, Johnny Vegas, 2011 champ, coming off that 7th place finish a couple weeks ago in Hawaii. And 45 to 1, not a bad play. Kind of surprised that you didn't take him, Joel. I know you're a big Johnny Vegas fan.
Yeah. He did look good late in the year. He's someone can definitely go low when he's feeling it. He can definitely get well into that 20 under range. He's someone I was considering. 45 to 1 odds are pretty nice on him.
All right, so your official alternate, your number one alternate in case Patrick Reed, Phil Mickelson, or Russell Knox doesn't tee it up tomorrow.
Well, I've been taking Chez Reavie every week, and I told myself I wasn't going to anymore because I swear he finishes T17 every week, which is great for his bank account and for
fantasy
FedEx Cup standings. But in this contest, it doesn't really do a whole lot for me. But as an alternate, I think he's I still like him at 33 to 1 odds. He's been putting so well. His mid to short game has just been so great. I think he's going to win sometime soon. He doesn't seem really content, but he always gets in the mix, kind of. I feel I'm okay with him as my alternate. I didn't want to take him as a starter this week.
Well, he's a good fantasy play, Jeff. I mean, he's moved from 140th in the world to 91st since the FedEx St. Jude Classic in June. He's got those 7 straight top 25s. He's got back-to-back top 20s here. He's got a 5th-place finish here. So why not Chez Reavie in this field?
He certainly played a lot better in the past year than the previous 2 or 3 years, where he really, kind of took a nosedive. My only thing with Reavie, I think, is he capable of sustaining it low to win this type of event? I've always seen him as better, in a kind of middle of the pack type event where you don't have to make 6 or 7 birdies in a round.
Okay. All right, so who's your first alternate in case Simpson, Duffner, or Kirk doesn't make it tomorrow?
I'm going to put Kevin Kisner on the list. He was kind of close in that category where I took Duffner and I took Kirk, and I took Kirk, kind of over Kisner. Kisner, we know, can go low. The only thing that kind of made me hesitate to put him in the regular lineup is he's playing on California grasses, which is a far cry from his beloved Bermuda that we find in the South. So that's what made me hesitate, but he's a good fit here.
All right, Kevin Kisner at 22-1 is your alternate. And so we're done with the regular picks. We've got an alternate long shot pick to go. So the players that are still remaining that we did not take, let's see, they include Brendan Steele. I'm kind of surprised none of us took Brendan Steele. I was thinking about him. He's got a couple good showings here the last 3 years. I know you like him, Joel. He finished runner-up here 3 years ago. Were you considering Brendan Steele?
Maybe a little bit. He's a good 5th forward. He's always that solid veteran type. He's a safe pick.
Okay.
Someone I was considering.
All right. Kevin Chappell at 40-1. Charles Howell at 40-1. Just couldn't get it done last week. We talked about how well he plays there at that event. That didn't work out for him. He's played pretty well here. He lost to Brian Gay in a playoff about 5 years ago. So Charles Howell also in the group under 50-1. And one other player is Brandt Snedeker, who is sitting at 40-1, Jeff. He hasn't played here for a few years. He's had some decent results here. We've only seen him basically at the RSM when he finished, I think it was 29th in November. That was his first event since June. He had that sternum injury. So are we just going to guess that he's healthy, or is he healthy? It's just a matter of he just had that break like everyone else.
Well, I think he's healthy because not only did he play the RSM, he played the QBE Challenge, the Shark Shootout, a couple weeks later, and then he tried to play the Indonesian Masters in the last week of the calendar year 2017 in an attempt to get into the top 50 and get that Masters invitation, and the heat got to him. And so he had to withdraw from that. So from an injury standpoint, I think he's in good shape. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's not a little careful, that he may not be on the range as long as he was previously. And also, from the heat exhaustion, even though it's been a few weeks now, are there any kind of lingering effects that are just going to take time to work themselves out? I don't think Snedeker is a long-term worry, but I like you guys, I'm kind of shying away from him right now. Kind of let him get his feet back under him.
All right, I got 3 players I like as long shots that are left on the board, and get your input from all 3 players. I've got Martin Laird. He was 9th here last year. He's got a bunch of top 25s here. I have also I have Sean O'Hare. He was 9th last year. I'm not worried about his play lately because in his history he's been able to win. Matter of fact, he's won 2 of his 4 professional events after back-to-back missed cuts coming in, so I'm not worried about that. And Matt Jones is also somebody I'm considering at 150-1. Matt has a good history here, 6 top 35s. But what's really happened to Matt, Jeff? He dropped from a high of 54th in 2015 worldwide to 262nd last year, but he does seem to be picking it up recently, including his runner-up at the Aussie Open.
I know he had a nagging injury issue a while back, and between that and maybe just the way it affects form, and if as we've seen with like Rory and his rib injury, and I'm not Matt Jones had a rib injury necessarily, but your swing changes because the nagging injury is forcing a small adjustment, and now you got to get rid of it. And so I think that's where Matt Jones is a little bit. Now he's Australian by birth, but he makes his home in Arizona. So a desert course like this would seem to be kind of a decent place to come out and have a good finish. And he was I think it was very encouraging that he was second at the Australian Open. And if you look a little bit further down his chart, he was also top 5 in the Web.com finale, which helped solidify getting him back on tour this year.
All right. What about you, Joel, as far as those 3 players? What do you think? You need to take time out of your shoveling the snow outside. So what do you think?
Oh, Sean O'Hare's still one. I think I took him a few times late in the year to sleeper.
Who's that?
I thought Sean O'Hare. Of the guys you just mentioned.
Okay, yeah, sure.
He's played okay recently. He had the tied for 9th last year. He won that QBE thing with Steve Stricker recently, if that means anything, and he doesn't hurt at least. He's
what was that?
Played well. I said he won that QBE shootout with Steve Stricker recently.
Okay, and how?
Probably doesn't.
Well, what was that? Elaborate a little bit more on that event.
I mean, that was just kind of. There weren't a lot of players there. This is just kind of.
So there was just 2 players there, him and Stricker.
No, there's more. I'm sorry, I'm just blanking on the rest of that. I didn't.
What was it, like a 20-man field, 10-man field?
Those usually are. I don't know if Jeff knows anything more about that one.
It's a 2-man team event.
Oh, it's a team event.
And it's been on the calendar for like 20 years. And so I think there are 16 pairs, 32 players in all. And last couple of years, they've even included the LPGA with Lexi Thompson participating. And it's not it doesn't go back as far as the old skins game does, but it's been a staple on the December calendar. A little extra money, a different format, chance to tee it up one more time before breaking for the Christmas holiday. And sometimes it can be a springboard. I remember it was a springboard for Keegan Bradley the year that he came before he won in his first year in the PGA Championship, but his following year, 2012, was actually a better year than 2011. And I think that he was able to kind of solidify his status, even though it didn't get any world ranking points, but just some confidence.
Okay. I tell you what, I'll go ahead and take O'Hare. I was gonna go between O'Hare and Jones, and I'll just take Sean O'Hare. Again, I do like the way he's trending at this particular event with that 9th place finish last year, and it's nice to hear that he's coming off some sort of a positive, again, not a major event, but a win's a win, and that has to feel good, and he had to have played pretty well there in order to get that win, even though it was a team event. So I'll go with O'Hare out of those 3. All right, Joel, so you're next, alternate number 2, long shot, if something happens to Chasson Hadley.
I'll go with the guy who almost got it last week, Tom Hoagie at 80-1. I think those are good odds for how well he played. And he had that poor final round when you compare it to the other players on the leaderboard. But even still, he had 16 greens in that last round. He just wasn't making the birdies that he was earlier in the week. He's had some good finishes recently. Not just that one. He had 2 other top 25s recently. Hopefully he's feeling good, and he had that late double bogey on 16, but that was really his only really bad hole at there. I thought he played admirably considering how little he's been in that position.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, that's what happens. The pressure gets to you, and the pressure got to him. But maybe with the 2 top 10s in his last 4 events, maybe he'll feel a lot better this week. And so he's sitting there 80-1. All right, Jeff. If anything happens to Lucas Glover, who's your long shot?
I'm going to take one of the young guys that is just coming out on tour, and we've talked about him a little bit in some past events, and that's Bo Hostler, who went from having no status on the Web.com tour last year to making the top 25 during the regular season to earn his PGA Tour card. People might remember that he was close to the lead at that 2012 U.S. Open that Webb Simpson wound up winning, and that's before he even got to college. He was a standout at the University of Texas, had an injury problem that I think kept him from getting onto the Web.com tour out the gate last year, but has made up for it. He's a Southern California native, and the putter is the best club in his bag. So I'm going to take familiarity on these greens and in this format to see what he can do on this week.
All right, definitely a young player that we have mentioned quite a bit here over the last several months. Maybe he will finally get in contention and maybe even get himself a win on the PGA Tour. Okay, other players to note. What about Adam Hadwin, Joel? He had that 59 in the third round last year. What was he, dead last in Hawaii a couple weeks ago? His game is not on. It really looked like he was going to turn the corner early last season, and I've been waiting for him to turn the corner, but his game just went away again.
Oh, he's a complete disaster right now. I can't believe he's even 50-1. I mean, he's 4 for 4 on made cuts this year. Although, to be fair, all 4 of those were no-cut events. But right now, he hasn't had top 30 on the year.
Should I use the drum roll, the rim shot? Yeah. You want me to rim shot you there? I missed it.
Yeah, yeah. I'll let you know next time.
Okay.
243rd in scoring average right now. He's got the yips around the green, so 278th in stand saves, 225th in shots gained around the green. I mean, maybe coming back to somewhere where he was so successful. He had that 13 birdies in that 59, which is incredible. He kind of slowed down a lot after that. I thought he was going to come back around when he had that T5 at the Bridgestone, but he plummeted again. Something's got to be wrong with him mentally.
All right, what about?
But at least he's been here before.
No, well, look, maybe that 59, which has got to be the reason he's 50-1. Maybe that will bring back some good memories. What about you got? By the way, Bill Haas is also right about 50-1. He's won here twice. Matter of fact, the last PGA Tour win for Bill Haas was here in 2015. He also lost to Johnny Vegas in a playoff in 2011 after winning in 2010. So he's got a lot, and he's got a couple other top 10s here. So Bill Haas really likes playing here. It's just that he has not played well recently. Hudson Swafford is also around 50-1. Jeff, he's the defending champ. So is Swafford just going to be one of those players that jumps up and wins every once in a while? Does he have anything better in his game?
Well, he's got a lot of talent, and I honestly have been a little disappointed in his career progression thus far. Right now, I think I have to keep him in that category of hot and cold golfer. And when he's hot and you just don't know when it's going to happen, in a year ago this week, he can play very well and he can win, but he's got too many miscuts, too many, bad round, that one bad round when the other 3 are actually pretty good. He's just not consistent enough to put himself into that category where he could be a top 50 player yet.
Also, you've got, by the way, Bubba's here. Bubba is around a 50-1 shot. But he's coming off a very disappointing year, and he was runner-up here, I believe, 2010. Hasn't had a top 5. Didn't have a top 5 hole last season, by the way, and not on top of his game, Jeff. So no reason to take him now. I mean, what we would want to see from Bubba as we look ahead is to Phoenix is we want to see Bubba in a couple of weeks, maybe top 20. If we can get a top 20 out of him, then maybe we can think of him as a long shot in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and maybe we could. And what will be interesting to watch is part of Bubba's struggles, not all of it, but part of Bubba's struggles was that he had an equipment change and he switched to those colored golf balls that are manufactured by Volvic. Not a good match, it turned out to be.
Is he done with them?
And And so at the end of the season, and he made this statement at whatever tournament he played in the fall season. He said, "I'm switching back.
All right.
I'm out of that contract." And so if he goes back to something that he's more familiar with and it starts performing for him,
Okay.
he may move up very quickly. But this is going to be kind of that early test to see, okay, is this going to be something that's gradual, or is this something that might take a little while?
Yeah, because he usually plays really well in Phoenix, as we know, but that damn colored ball screwed him up last year, and we'll see whether or not he can get some of his mojo back this week for us to even consider him in a couple of weeks. All right, let's see what else. What about David Lingmerth, Joel? He lost that playoff not only to Jason Duffner a couple of years ago, but he lost in that three-man playoff to Brian Gay as well. So he's lost 2 playoffs here, but his ranking has really dropped from 55 a few years ago now to 128.
Yeah, it has. He's only had one top 10 in the last year. He was not horrendous down the stretch. He made 12 straight cuts before getting eliminated at the Dell Tech in the next Cup playoff. But he's just not hitting greens. So he's 198th in greens in regulation this year so far. He was 158th last year. He's still okay off the tees. I think he's only had 2 top 10s in the last 3 years, or no, 3 in the last 2. He just doesn't look quite like he did during those. And I had that other playoff win at the Memorial at one time too. I thought he was going to take off a little more than he has, and now he's just kind of just another guy.
Yeah, we all did think that he had the talent to really kind of move ahead, Jeff. It just didn't happen. Matter of fact, another player, you can probably throw in some personal reasons of why Ryan Palmer has dropped. Another player, he was 193rd last year. He had dropped from 75th in the world, and normally we would have looked at him this week as a heavy long shot. 125 to 1, I believe. He's got several top 10s here. I think he has 5 top 10s at this golf course, but he just hasn't played well, and neither has Lingmerth. These are 2 long shot players that normally we would have considered.
Yeah. Now, I'll be honest. I was never that sold on David Lingmerth.
Okay.
I don't see him with with a strength that was going to come through on weekends on a consistent basis, whether it was power, whether it was putting. He could obviously get hot, and he had a great 2-year stretch, but I didn't see him as somebody that had staying power, and I think we see a little bit of that with Ryan Palmer. He's an older player. It took him a while to find his stride, and when he found his stride, he's played pretty well. He's also a very streaky player, and if he ever, puts the top 5 up there, latch onto it for a little bit. But I think he was really affected with his father's death, and his father died in an automobile accident. It wasn't one of those where we knew it was coming. And so he's not been the same since. I think there may have been some other issues going on as well. But he's never really been able to get back to that level that he had in 2014 and 2015. And now as I say this, the other part that I couldn't quite remember about the other issues in his life, his wife dealt with cancer last year.
Yep, that'll do it. Scott Piercy's another player that has dropped off. He was all-time best 36th in the world in 2016, dropped down to 122 last year. Any particular reason why Scott Piercy? Was it an injury situation, Jeff?
Well, it was an injury situation early on, and then he came back from that.
Yeah.
And actually had a couple of good finishes, and we thought, okay, the health is back where it was, but then he's fallen off again, and there doesn't seem to be any sort of reason that would that would qualify for that, unless you've run across something, Joel.
Not that I've seen. Yeah, I remember he had the injury issue for a while, but I haven't heard anything more recently. Although he shot all 4 rounds in the 60s at the Sony, even though tied for 25th.
Well,
something to
sure. Absolutely. He's definitely a better player than what we've seen. So keep an eye on him if he starts to if he plays better again this week. And other players to note, you might have heard John Peterson's story last week. Seems like he is down to a few more weeks, a few more months on the PGA Tour for him to get his game back going again. Nick Watney is a player that has not made it back after injury. He's just not playing well. And then also a player to note, I figured I'd throw in there, is the kid Taylor Gooch, who had a pretty good week last week, and maybe another one of these young players that you want to keep an eye on. But again, Peterson was a player I remember, Jeff, we were talking about a few years ago as a player to watch, and that just hasn't worked. So another realist as far as his game. I mean, what's does he have does he have other plans? That he's, hey, you know what, I've got something else I can do?
Well, I think he's to come to face with the idea that I might need to have a plan B. And John Peterson's another one of those players, kind of like Hudson Swafford, maybe more to the extreme, where when he's on, he's very, very good. He had a great finish to the 2013 Web.com season that got him on the PGA Tour. He's a former NCAA champion. The talent is there, but his game has just endured this roller coaster where when he plays well, he's going to be, at least within arm's length of the top 10. But when he's not, he stacks up missed cuts, something fierce. And I think he's had to come to grips. How can I be a more consistent player? And if I can't be a more consistent player, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? He's now talking about, all right, if I can't play golf, I'll do the next best thing in real estate, where I'll have a lot of time to play golf.
All right. And maybe that'll help him sell houses too. What about Watney, Joel? You surprised it's taken Watney this long to kind of get going here?
Yeah, I mean, he had about 5 wins in a 4 or 5 year stretch there. At one point, he was always very poor at closing in majors, and that was the big issue with him. And
I'm sure he'd like that right now.
Yeah, just to even be in the field for those right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a lot of injuries, and he just has not played well coming back off of them. Yeah, I can't really consider him until we see him do something. I mean, the talent's clearly there, but I don't know. I think his confidence seems pretty shot at this point.
Yeah, it's sort of like Hunter Mahan. Another really good player. We've just unfortunately haven't not seen back up at the top in a long time. Is Taylor Gooch a player that we should be keeping an eye on? What kind of a player is he? Is he somebody that you think has got the pedigree to be picked on this show, sometime in the future?
Oh, he looked good last week. That 64-66 start at the Sony. He's had a few other decent starts this year too. I believe he played pretty well on the Web.com tour. He had a win last year. Finished 6th in the overall ratings. Yeah, he's someone he's been talked up a lot on the course. It seems like.
Okay.
Another Oklahoma guy. I think he's definitely one to look forward to.
And any other players we didn't talk about that you wanted to mention out there for the listeners as far as fantasy or anything else?
Does anyone know if Blaine Barber still in the tournament? I'm seeing him at 200-1. I mean, he's got a great story to play for. I feel like that, inspirational stuff.
I think that might be one of those things where he is he's leaving his options open. Last update that we had seen from Barber was that he was actually going to stay behind in Hawaii to be with his caddy for a few days, and so he might be a late WD if he chooses to extend that stay to kind of fill in the gaps. His caddy suffered a severe head injury when he just kind of blacked out and collapsed at dinner with some friends in Hawaii, and it wasn't the blackout necessarily that was the major problem. It's that he hit his head on something, and he wound up in neurological ICU semi-consciousness for pretty much the entire weekend. And so just a real tough situation for and those close to him and his caddy, Corey. What's Corey's last name? Do you have it in front of you, Joel?
No.
That's on your Around the Tours report, right, Jeff?
It is on the Around the Tours report, which I do not have on my screen.
That's okay. If you want to know his name, go read the Around the Tours report. That's just another reason to read it. But yeah, has he won? He's never won on the PGA Tour, has he?
I don't believe so.
He has not. Now, he's
okay.
been a Web.com Tour winner.
Okay.
Corey Gilmer is the caddy.
Okay. All right, Jeff. Any other players that you wanted to mention?
Let me get back to what
By the way, Chad Campbell.
Looking up Corey Gilmer's name.
Chad Campbell is a former champ. He finished 6th here last year. He's another long shot in the field. And Brian Gay is a former champ. He's also in this field as a long shot. Stuart Sink. I think Joel, who likes to pick Stuart Sink. I think you finally give up on him. He is also in the field. Kevin Na's odds are dropping fast. Jimmy Walker made a return last week, but he is not on top of his game yet. At 80-1 in this field, that's all you need to know there as far as a player of that caliber. So, any other players, Jeff?
Yeah, let me throw in Maverick McNeely, who will spend his year on the Web.com Tour after qualifying. He just turned professional last summer. Standout at Stanford, was the world's #1 ranked amateur for a good period of time, and has a sponsor exemption into this event. He's a California guy, kind of like Bo Hostler, and just tons of talent. And with the new qualifying system on the PGA Tour, you can't play your way in right away necessarily unless you use your exemptions really, really, really well. Maybe Maverick will. Maybe he'll do a Jordan Spieth and won't have to play much on the Web.com Tour. But he's down at 175-1, but he's got pedigree. There was a lot of question as to when he might turn professional. There's also a question as to if he would turn professional or he would go into business. Because he's the son of the founder of Sun Microsystems, and he's got a Stanford head on his shoulders too.
Okay, all right, Joel. So before we let you go, you also have a few. We mentioned one of the columns you have at ProGolfWeekly.com. That is the European Tour storylines. And, of course, you mentioned you got the PGA Tour storylines for this week's CareerBuilder Challenge. And you also have the top 10 rankings, too, right?
I do. Yeah, we're going to depth a little more on that. You see a lot of some of the players here we've been talking about. I have Russell Knox, Brian Stewart up there higher than most people do this week. Yeah, it's a good time to go over to Pro Golf Weekly. Have good coverage on there's all the stats and videos, compelling analysis, highlight for all the tours worldwide. And Jeff's got a new column on there too that he started doing. That's got a lot of great information on it too.
All right, sounds good.
ProGolfWeekly.com.
All right, Joel, chip her up, boy. What are you? Is it snowing out?
Probably. No, not right now. It's pretty rare here.
It's pretty rare
that
it snows there?
Do something before it starts again.
Is that what it is? Do you have a Zamboni?
No, not yet. I'm getting close to needing one.
Yeah. No golf, huh? In this weather?
No, not lately.
No, I can understand.
You can use those colored balls that Bubba Watson has discarded.
Yeah, that's true.
Right to them.
Sure, they can be used for something.
Tell him you're the one guy who bought the balls. Because obviously you have to perform well in order to sell the items. And when you have like the worst year of your career, it's not good at selling the merchandise.
Now, unless you're using like the glow in the dark ones for nighttime golfing or something, there's no use for having the color ones. It just messes it with you too much confidence-wise, I think.
I think so. All right, Joel. We'll talk Tiger next week.
Oh yeah, excited for it.
All right. Thanks, Joel.
Sure. Bye.
All right. That's Joel Cook, ProGolfWeekly.com. and Torrey Pines next week, Jeff. So we get there's you already know who's in the field. You got your first look report at pjtour.com on Friday.
We'll have the first look report on Friday. Obviously, Tiger has announced that he's going to play. Jon Rahm is the defending champion. Remember that long putt
yes.
from the edge of the green
that broke his maiden, right?
That was his first win anywhere, and it came at Torrey Pines, and it was actually a pretty good celebration for him as well. So we'll see a lot of that highlight again, I'm sure. But those will be the two marquee guys. Phil Mickelson, that's in his backyard. I think we'll see him. An interesting look. Kind of the side bet. Who has the better tournament between the two guys who were at the top of the game 10 years ago, between Phil and Tiger? We'll set everybody aside, but if they were to go head to head, who has the better week? Could be an interesting question there.
Wouldn't be a bad idea to tee them up together. So yeah. I know they like to spread those guys apart, but still, sooner or later,
that will probably be more the case. Is you'll find Tiger on one side of the draw, and you'll find Phil on the other side, and who they put with Jon Rahm with, I guess, is another question. But
you don't know about any other superstars that'll be there?
Well, I'm trying to get the
Justin
latest,
Rose usually
field.
plays there, right? I know. I think he usually plays there.
Well, you have to kind of be a little cautious here, because in Europe they go from Abu Dhabi to Dubai, and so a lot of those marquee European Tour players are going to stay out there and play Dubai. So I don't think we're necessarily going to see all that many come over.
So you think Dustin will play there?
Care of that.
Dustin will play twice over there?
Justin Rose will probably play twice
Dustin Johnson?
over there. Oh, Dustin Johnson. I don't know if Dustin is playing Dubai, but I can tell you he's not on the list right now.
Okay.
At least for Torrey Pines.
Okay.
So, and this is kind of the dilemma that a couple of these West Coast events get every year, is somebody's got to go up against Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and you know that you're not going to get anybody really from the European contingent to come over and play, and so that hurts a little bit. Now next week we will have Hideki Matsuyama. He'll come back and tee it up on the mainland. Ricky Fowler, who grew up not that far from Torrey Pines, is going to be in the field. We're going to get former champion Kyle Stanley, but
that's
the European Tour contingent, that especially now that they've broken it up. It used to be that Abu Dhabi and Dubai were also paired with the Qatar Masters. They took the Qatar Masters and moved it to a different point in the calendar and paired it up with another Middle Eastern event. So now you've got just a back-to-back, which I think may actually help people with the scheduling. They don't want to play three necessarily, but if they can get two back-to-back, they'll play both of those and then take a week off. So that may have been to the European Tour's benefit.
Okay. And by the way, what else do you have at Around the Tours report? You have that Blaine Barber piece. What else you got in there?
Talk a little bit about Blaine Barber and his caddy. Talk a little bit about Rory McIlroy and his heart condition. And also on the LPGA, now theirs hasn't started yet. They got one more week before they open in the Bahamas next week. But there were a few LPGA players that were in action, either at the Diamond Resorts Invitational or at some charity events. And one of those is Jarena Pillar, who played the Diamond Resorts Invitational, and now her season is over. And you can go read why at Around the Tours.
All right, sounds good. And what's your new Pro Golf Weekly column on?
At Pro Golf Weekly, the new feature is called The Starter, and what it does is it serves as kind of that bridge between putting the results of the weekend into focus and getting you set up for the week that's ahead. We talked a little bit about Patton Kizzire and the overtime, and Took a look at the world rankings. Patton Gazier is now just outside the top 50 in the world rankings after being outside the top 100 at the end of the regular season. So he's almost at that World Golf Championship status, and he would be in the match play if it was sooner on the calendar. So we looked at that, a little bit of whimsies, a little bit of just looking at tournament history. You know, I think now that it's called the CareerBuilder Challenge and it's been 10 years or so since Bob Hope died, you know, some of us, you know, the millennials maybe don't remember, you know, when Bob Hope, you know, was the face of that tournament, and he was the face of that tournament for 45 years. So we looked at that a little bit. We looked at Alcatraz, the Island Green at TPC West. It's kind of scatter shooting, but you're going to walk away with some nuggets of information you didn't have before.
All right. Sounds good, Jeff. We'll talk to you next week. We'll talk to Joel Cook next week, Torrey Pines, and then, of course, Phoenix, which is always around the Super Bowl, so that's fun. So we're really going to start heating things up here for the 2018 season on Prime Sports Golf, brought to you by ProGolfWeekly.com. Don't forget to check out all our on-demand shows on our website and our iTunes and YouTube pages under Prime Sports Network. Follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN. We'll see you next Wednesday and every Wednesday here on the Prime Sports Radio Network.